welcome back onto the baseline. As always, I am your host, Colton Wilson, joined by Travis Wilson and Chris Smith. Fellas, we're getting to the point where we don't need to introduce ourselves every episode, do we?
Well, why are you introduced as the host and we're introduced as supporting characters?
Yeah, I'm not feeling very important anymore, Colton.
We're all important here. It is, we're each an important and equal part of the wheel. Guys, how are your weeks? Chris, how's going back to school?
I mean, it's just getting to a point where now, I mean, it's only been a few weeks, man, and I'm just like, I'm to the point now where I miss basketball already, and I can't wait in a couple of weeks for us to start open gyms and everything again. I don't know. I guess I'm weird like that, and it's really hard for me to turn off the basketball side of me.
We're having open gyms. We're doing Monday, Thursdays. So,
for my wife's sake, I take April off.
Trav, how you doing?
Yeah, I got back in a gym. Got to watch my son play AAU this weekend for the first time, playing with the Wisconsin Hoop Select program, first year with them. I love my job. I love what I do. I love everything that I get to do as part of Bound and previously at WSN. But I am very much in if I could, my day would consist of golfing and watching my kids play sports era. That's the things that I enjoy the most right now in my life. So it was fun to get out and watch him play, and he had a good weekend. So
that'd be a good hit on T-Swiss next album.
I thought when you said you were back in the gym that you jumped into a pickup game with Colton at the local Y.
No. We don't have a local Y. We have a local old guys going to the gym at 5 or 5:30 in the morning on Fridays.
And then fake knee injuries afterwards.
As always, here on the Baseline banner, our presenting sponsor is Bound. Bound Wisconsin. Head over there. In this spring season, we are covering baseball and girls soccer in the state. There is scores. There is at least the scores that can be found in this early part of the season. But then we also have content coming out throughout the year in football-related, basketball-related, and all other Wisconsin high school sports-related content. Head over to boundwisconsin.com. This episode's a pretty great one. We had a really awesome interview that we have already recorded, and we're just going to hop into after we a couple little pieces of notes and news. But we interviewed Ryan Walz, head coach of Wisconsin Lutheran. So stick around. You'll want to see that. He talks a little bit about Kon Knueppel's recruiting process in general with some of the kids that he's had, and a lot more. So you're not going to want to miss it.
And he talks about how it's going with Zavier Zens, who's in the middle of his decision-making process. This was visit weekend for Zavier, taking in his kind of 3 finalists after he reopened his commitment with Utah State, Illinois, and Wisconsin. So we're expecting, as he mentioned, a decision within the next couple of days where Mr. Basketball will be heading.
Following that interview, we are getting into that segment where we're going to do our first starting 5 draft. But stick around for that. We are doing the starting 5 of coaching phrases, sayings, or words. No idea how this is going to transpire, but stick around after the Coach Walz interview for that. Fellas, this week in basketball, we had a little bit of recruiting news. A couple guys that are alumni hit the portal. Jaquan Johnson and Leon Bond. Jaquan is from Pius, Leon Bond from Tosa East. They both transfer into Iowa State. Pewaukee grad, who we had declared for the draft, Milan Momcilovic actually entered the portal today. So a lot of moving at Iowa State. Will Hornseth out of De Pere.
No, to be clear, Milan said that he's entering the draft and the portal.
Yes. Similar to
what Black. It was interesting. If you read his announcement note, it was kids are awesome sometimes, right? And players in general, like it was the best fans in the country, best experience, best staff. Oh, by the way, I'm entering the transfer portal and going to the NBA draft. But that's the world we live in with things. It'll be interesting to see if he stays in the draft, and gets that shot, or if he makes more money coming back to school and going somewhere else.
Yeah.
I think that's a big decision right there alone, right? It is how much money can I make in the portal compared to what my contract would be if I got drafted. Yeah. That's the realistic world that we live in, which is really crazy to think about because
I saw a couple articles and things on X today, Twitter today, that were like kids that are average 3 to 5 points a game, like as freshmen, are asking for $1 million in the transfer portal, which is just wild. Like, as Coach Walz alluded to, we're not going to jump too much into his interview. I don't want
shoot
to,
for the stars, baby, right?
Like half of Division I college basketball players have entered the portal. It's wild. A couple other newsworthy ones. Will Hornseth, who is out of De Pere, he had a big year at Northern Iowa. He followed Ben Jacobson, and he transferred over to Utah State. He gave that announcement. A couple in-state guys, Jakari Smith out of Milwaukee Bradley Tech, he committed to Arkansas Little Rock. And then Northern Iowa, they come in and they gave out, I think it was on Tuesday night, the announcements just kept coming. Logan Ramchek of Xavier, Colin Julian out of Whitefish Bay, Eli Krieger out of McFarland, Zeke Jones, Dominican, and Charlie Hole out of Stanley Boyd, all in the 2027 class, all offered by Northern Illinois.
Who?
Northern Illinois. Did I say Northern Iowa the first
time?
No. And in girls' news, Jory Buwalda out of Randolph, she was at Milwaukee. She's transferring to another school, in-state school, up in Green Bay. And then Kate Peterson-Abiat, who, Trav, what was her role at the WIA?
Well, she was a head coach at Cleveland State for many years,
Yep.
And then went to the WIA as a assistant director. Was there for 3 or 4 or 5 years, something like that. And then decided she wanted to get back into coaching. Went to UW Green Bay as an assistant when Kayla Carius came in there. I think she was there 2 years, maybe. And now she just announced that she's taking the head position at Purdue Fort Wayne, and making a real significant move to get back into that head coaching rank. I texted her earlier today and told her congratulations, and told her that we were sad that she'll be leaving the state, but hope that things go well for her, and I'm sure she'll be back in state and recruiting the state. In fact, she already offered Columbus Catholic freshman Ellie Gardner, who had an outstanding season. So you can expect that Purdue Fort Wayne will be a player on the state recruiting scene going forward under Coach Peterson-Abiad.
Yeah, that's kind of our news. We're keeping it light because of the interview that we had with Coach Walz. So stick around here. We're going to kick it to ourselves from about an hour ago. So watch the interview with head coach Ryan Walz out of Wisconsin Lutheran. We are joined now by an extremely special guest here, 3-time defending state champion coach of Wisconsin Lutheran Vikings boys basketball team, Ryan Walz. Coach, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming on. This past 3 seasons have been quite a great ride for you and the Wisconsin Lutheran Vikings, and we really appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to us. We're going to hopefully dive into quite a few different topics, but before we do, this past season you became the all-time winningest coach at Wisconsin Lutheran. I think you're sitting at 372 wins over 18 years. I think the first question that I have for you is, what does it mean to you to be the boys varsity head coach at Wisconsin Lutheran?
I was thinking about that the other day, when you're kind of counting the blessings and just being like, man, this has been really special. And I remember sitting in college classes and just sitting there dreaming about, when can I be done with college so I can go coach high school basketball? And how awesome would it be if I could go back to Wisco and coach there? And, my path has led me back, and I feel so fortunate to be at my alma mater, school I love. One of only 3 head coaches in school history since, we closed the old school and moved to 84th Street. And to follow my dad too, it's been very special for me.
Yeah, basketball kind of runs in the family. Your brother Jason is over with the Kettle Moraine Lutheran girls. They were at state the past 2 years. Your father Dale, he had 515 wins coaching between Lakeside and Wisco. Your brother Jason has 391 wins. Is there a competition there between brotherly and then just trying to catch dad at with the total that he's got?
No. I didn't even know Jason was at 391, so I guess yep, he's going to get to 400 first for sure. Um, and no, it the competition from that has gone out. That has never been there. It's always been support.
Yeah.
We have a great family unit, very close. My two brothers are with me at Wisco, and older brother Jason's at Calmoraine. So he probably takes the brunt of our jokes just being not at Wisco. But no, and my dad is great. You know, he's at so many of our games and tries to get up and see my brother's team play as often as he can. So you know, it's been fun for me to share this experience with my family. You know, we talk about that often, that you know, when you do things in life, if you don't have people to share them with, it's not very much fun. It doesn't mean as much. And so being able to share this with my family has been great. And I know, you know, watching my brother's team up at KML have success, it's been very enjoyable for us to see him and what he's done up there as well.
Coach, when you took the job at Wisconsin Lutheran as the head coach, you know, they always say it's hard to follow a legend. Not only were you following a longtime, very successful head coach, you were doing so at your alma mater, and that coach happened to be your dad. Was there any trepidation or, you know, hesitancy about what that meant for you, or what that was going to mean for you to step into that role?
I think for my dad, there was a lot of stress involved in that, and I think he was worried for me. You know, I've always been very confident in you know, my knowledge of the game and my ability to grow and my ability to connect with kids, and so I felt like I could do the job. Otherwise, I wouldn't have accepted it. I knew I had to prove some things, and there would be skeptics. There always are. But how lucky for me that my dad gave me a state championship team in my first year. So that's a pretty good gift there for you to start your first season and go win a state championship. And so I win a state championship with my dad's team. He never got the chance to, and so I'm, you know, forever thankful. And that's really his state championship more than it's mine.
You
Yeah,
know,
Coach.
being a part of a, you know, the head coach for 18 years at one program, and seeing all the guys that go through your program 4 years after 4 years after 4 years, and having an opportunity to bring some of those guys back to coach with you. What's that like?
That's been a neat opportunity. Of course, CL Whiteside is the biggest one, and he's just been a blessing. He's so good at what he does, and you know, a lot of our success is based on his ability to coach. And I've really given him a lot of responsibility. He's really a co-head coach, so to speak, and you know, he does a great job. And then we've got. You know, one of our freshman coaches played for me. A couple of our coaches in our youth program played for me. And so it's really fun to see those guys come and give back to the high school and be excited. And it's not just those guys, you know, a lot of guys are interested. They just don't have maybe the time, or aren't in a job situation where they can help, but, you know, text and support and try and come to games. And so there's a lot of Wisco pride right now, and a big Wisco family of not only former players, but alumni that are really enjoying the success.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, success breeds success, right? And I would imagine that the run this last 3 years has had an impact with regards to the lower levels. I guess I can't speak for that. I guess the question would be have you seen that excitement, that just, you know, numbers increase, or kids are more excited with basketball? You see them at games come more and more as, you know, you get to 3 state tournaments and win 3 state championships.
Yeah, I'll call that the Kon effect. You know, he was such a personable kid, so in touch with who he is as a person, and so humble that, you know, he was able to connect with so many different people, and for kids to look up to him, and um, that being a huge motivator for guys that say, "Oh, look at him. I want to be like him. I want to go to the NBA. I want to go play at Duke." Whatever. That absolutely has had an effect on our youth program and kids being excited and wanting to come and play and put in the time to work at the game and just improve themselves. And so it's been really fun for me to see the development of our youth program over the years, and we put a lot of time into that, and that's a huge piece of our success. And I think as I looked at the other schools that I always thought were, teams that wanted to emulate, or coaches that I thought, man, these guys really do a great job at. Every one of those guys had a great youth program in place, and so that was something that we worked on right from the get go. And it took a long time to build it, but yeah, I mean, with the guys that we have right now coming out of our youth program, it's sustainable success.
Coach, for you as a varsity head coach, what does it mean to have a great youth program? What does that mean for your involvement, or how do you make sure that happens?
Well, it's top down, right? So I'm the one who's in charge. I have to have my fingers in some of that, where we're picking the right coaches. We're putting teams together where kids can be successful. We're trying to get as many teams to give as many kids the opportunities as we can. We got to put them in the right divisions for them to. We got to get them gym space. We got to get them training time. We have to give the coaches the support they need to coach those teams and give them the information that we want passed on, the culture that we want to build, the terminology we want to use, the philosophies that we want to play with. And so it ends up being a huge piece of what I do or what we do as coaches in our program. And it has importance that goes beyond what I think most people can understand, not just for the basketball program, but for our high school, and getting kids to commit to coming to the high school from our grade schools out in the suburbs, in the city, and where they have closer public high schools that they can attend. And if we didn't have a program, then they just go play for them. And once you get those friends and once you build those bonds, not only kids, but also parents, because parents spend so much time in youth program or youth sports, a lot of times their friends are the parents of the kids on the team. And so it has made a huge impact on our school. And it's not just the boys basketball program, it's the girls program, it's the football, it's it's all the different junior programs that we have.
Yeah, you talked the Kon effect with regards to your youth program, and that's something that I think that isn't just limited to Wisconsin Lutheran. I think especially after you guys got to that first state tournament back in 24, where Kon and the rest of your group got to play at the Kohl Center. The whole statewide audience got to see him. Then the following year that he had the success at Duke, obviously then now what he's doing here in the NBA. I think the Kon Knueppel effect is a statewide effect. I mean, I see his jerseys in the little hometown that I live in Viola.
Yeah. And I was just thinking about the rookie of the year. They just played their last game tonight. And he struggled a little bit down the stretch here. Didn't shoot it as well as he would have liked to. But I mean, my goodness, he just played a whole NBA season, and I think he only missed one game the entire season. But the cultural effect he had on Duke and now at at Charlotte, is just you can, if I know him and I know what he did for our program, and I see him doing the exact same thing for Duke and now for the Charlotte Hornets, and I'm just amazed at his overall impact, not just in basketball, but on people. And so it's just been tremendous to watch him, and enjoyable to, again, we talked about sharing before, when we went to watch him play against the Bucks, to see how many people were interested in Kon and were cheering for the Bucks, but then also cheering for Kon that was so awesome to see that, and how the community at whole has really embraced him as Wisconsin's son, so to speak.
Yeah, coming out of high school, Mr. Wisconsin, he ends up going to Duke. If you're willing to, could you just talk a little bit about the recruiting process, because he committed right before, or not right before, September, I believe, of his senior year, before the basketball season started. Um, if you could give a little peek behind the curtain on how that sort of progressed from his freshman year to his senior year, and how the recruiting process, whether it changed, ramped up over that process for Kon.
The local schools knew he was really, really good right away. I mean, Marquette and Wisconsin were on him right away. But it took a little bit of time for some of the national schools. And I think a lot of the Big Ten schools figured, well, if Marquette and Wisconsin are on him that much, we're not going to probably win that battle. So we're not going to put as much time in, maybe, as some other kids they might. But from a national standpoint, the Blue Bloods didn't come until the summer, before his senior year. And so that happened really quick. And there were a couple factors there. One is he played so well in the EYBL, which is everything for high school kids, in recruiting. It's a monster. And then he went to the top 100 camp, and he played really, really well there. And so as a result, then also now you've got Duke and Alabama. And I know Alabama might not be considered a blue blood, but in the last 5-6 years, they have been as good as anybody. And so when they started getting interested, it changed kind of the dynamic of what he was thinking and where he was leaning to. Now all of a sudden, listen, it's not just about going to play Division I. This is about going to play in the NBA. And we had a number of NBA teams reach out to us, front office guys, about him. Started doing interviews to find out about him. There was an NBA scout that came and watched him practice, and after practice, he basically told him, "Yeah, you're going to be drafted. After your freshman year, probably like in the 16 to 20 range." And there was a reality to that, where now you have a shift in mindset of, well, I'm not just going to play college basketball. I'm going to get ready to go to the NBA. And in his mind, it was, where can I go that has the best competition to then also prepare me to get to the NBA the fastest? And that's where Alabama and Duke, at the end of the day, really kind of took over from Wisconsin and Marquette. And Alabama at the time, every one of their assistant coaches was a former NBA guy. And so the analytics, how they train and whatever, was really impressive to him because of how they just get their guys prepared for the NBA. And then, of course, Duke, that speaks for itself, and their run of players in the NBA. And so at the end of the day, that's where he decided to go, because he thought it would be the path to get him there the fastest. And he gambled on himself, and he was 100% right.
We're talking with Ryan Walz, the head coach at Wisconsin Lutheran. Coach, staying on the recruiting process, you've had a number of guys over the years that have gone on to play college basketball. You had Flavian Davis as a high D1 kid early on. Just talk to us about how that process, how the whole recruiting industry and business has changed since that time when you started 18 years ago to kind of where we're at today.
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I first started, AAU was really kicking in big. And so you had kind of this combination of college coaches that would go through AAU, and then some would old school and go through the high school coach. And then you're kind of, you almost had to be in contact with the AAU coach to know what was going on. And you had to kind of communicate back and forth a little bit for the good of the kid. And now it's like, I don't know, it's agents, and they're the ones who are pushing the kid out, and they're doing the work, and it's really weird because I think it's changed how much college coaches are going into gyms and seeing high school kids, and so random kids aren't being seen like that anymore. I mean, it's really, you gotta get out there, you gotta put your name out there, you gotta go attract the schools yourself, you gotta get their attention on you somehow. And agents are a lot of the people that are doing that now. So it's even beyond the AAU coaches now, to get that out there. And so that has really, really changed tremendously. And obviously that's because of the money, right? It's the NIL, it's the money that's being transferred, and that's brought agents into the scene.
How has that impacted? Obviously, it's a huge change for Division I, but how has that trickled down and impacted the kids that are Division II, Division III kids, WIAC kids? How has it changed for them over the years as well?
I think they just wait longer. So they have the ability to wait longer because they can see what's going to happen in the portal and who's going to fall through the portal. And I think I saw something the other day about that. There's half of all Division I players are in the portal right now. I didn't fact check that, but that's amazing. And how many of those kids are not going to find a spot? And so then they're going to go fill a D2 position. And then how many D2 kids that were in the portal are now not going to move up or now have to move down because there's no opportunity for them. And so there's that constant cycle of college kids moving that affects the high school kids in a negative way. And that's why I think that high school kids have to be really proactive about going and getting school's attention, because sometimes it comes so late that you might not have an opportunity. And you can't just sit back and wait. We used to tell kids all the time, don't worry about it. If you're good enough, you're going to be seen. They'll find you, whatever. I have not said that to a kid in a couple of years now, because I don't know that that's true anymore.
What is that advice that you give to those kids that are wanting to play at the next level? It obviously, you just showed how that conversation has changed between you and the athlete. What advice are you now giving to the athletes that are like, hey, this isn't something that I want to stop doing after my senior year?
For the D3 kids, it's the hardest, right? So D1 kids are still fine for the most part, and D2 is hard around here because there aren't many D2s. I mean, we have Parkside, and that's about it. So you have to pick the schools that you are interested in, not only for basketball but for school. And then you have to contact those coaches, and you have to tell me so I can give them tape and I can contact them. And you have to tell your AAU coaches so that they can reach out and give your AAU schedule and get on social media. That's another thing, that just pushing stuff out on social media to different coaches and your schedules and your availability, and all of that has become important.
Coach, I want to ask you about some of the difference in how different programs, different coaches at the college level handle the recruiting process. And if maybe you have, without identifying, if there's any interesting or, kind of funny anecdotes that you have from that recruiting over the years.
Yeah, right. Everybody's different, right? From a personality standpoint. And so you get to know a lot of different personalities. Usually I'm working with assistant coaches, and those guys are grinding, so they're working really, really hard to try and make their way. And less oftentimes it's the head coaches. When the head coach calls, that it's a serious thing, right? And or if they come to the gym, then I tell the boys, hey, if the head coach comes to watch you play, then it's a big deal. So it's just all the different personalities. And I guess if I was going to pick out one that I thought was interesting, one of the Big Ten schools had come to visit Kon one time, and he came in and he sat Kon down and he said, well, what do you know about our school? And he answers, well, this, and he goes, yeah, but what do you know about our basketball? What do you know any of our players? Do you know any of this, whatever? And he's just kind of rattling off all this stuff. And he says, why should we recruit you if you don't know anything about us? and that it just his bluntness to that, and how, in his face he was, I was like, oh, okay, well, that's a good lesson for the young man to learn about recruitment right there.
Yeah, it is. When you look at Zavier Zens, senior now, graduating senior, again, another Mr. Basketball Award winner for your team. He initially committed to Northern Iowa out of school. With Coach Jacobson leaving, he has opened his recruitment back up. A question for you that I would have is, in this era of the NIL and the transfer rule, how do you think that Zavier's recruitment might have gone differently? I think that because of the way that maybe that high school, like you mentioned, that high school kids, their recruitment process is happening later and later. Zavier continued to just impress year after year, especially, and even into his senior year. So how do you think that maybe his recruiting process would have been different pre-transfer portal?
So I think that a lot of schools look at freshmen as a, a a a plan to get someone to come to your school who's going to stay, and like that becomes a really important part of that piece. Like we don't want to bring in a freshman who's going to be dissatisfied, not playing after a year, and then just leave right away, which is now possible with the transfer portal. And so I think they're way more selective about who they're picking to recruit and offer scholarships to, based on not just talent, but also based on, is this kid going to stick around, and are we going to have a chance to work with him and develop him into playing time? And again, the other side of the transfer portal is we can always bring in older kids to play. And so that balance and that mix of bringing in versus developing, that kind of that's a hard thing to juggle for head coaches, and I don't envy them at all to have to do that, because you've got certain freshmen that I'm sure you would want to play, or by the time they're sophomores, you want them to be rotation guys, and it just makes it difficult if you can't keep them long enough to develop them, and or you've got kids coming in that you're bringing in off the portal, that are older, and how do you mix the two? And I think that's where Wisconsin has really done a great job of kind of figuring that out, what works best for them and their philosophy as they move forward. But it's not easy, and I wouldn't want to have that as my responsibility. Too hard.
Agreed. Coach, we've gone over now this recruiting process. I think we want to jump into this past season and these past 3 seasons that you've had with your Wisco group. You've had 2 30-0 seasons, 3 straight, being moved up to D1, getting 2 straight Division I state championships. One thing that I really enjoy when watching your team is, one, it's a high IQ group that you coach, and then we talked a little bit about this at the Midwest Players Classic last year. Your super high assist rate that your team has had. I think when we had talked last year, at that point in the season, like 72% of your made baskets were assisted on, or something astronomical like that.
Yeah.
So I'd love to know how you get, especially with players such as Zavier, such as Cager, that are such as Kon, that these kids can go off and they can score 40 a night if they really preferred, but you have them bought into sharing the ball, and I'd love to know how you get them to buy into that process.
Yeah, we've always preached share it. Going back to even like 2014 when we won the state championship, I think our leading score was 12 points a game. So the philosophy has not changed. How we have gotten to execute that philosophy has changed over the years. We've gone down the path of analytics to really help kids understand what is the best shot possible percentage wise, and what is the best shot possible for you as an individual player. And then leaning into those types of shots, we have, added an offensive system that lends itself to sharing, putting kids in position to be successful, putting them into actions that create, some mismatches at times, and then trying to, expose those mismatches. I think it's the everything that adds to it. And then I'll add in there that the Kon effect is big too, because when you have, all-time great player who shares it the way he did and deferred so many times to other players to make plays based on him feeling like, well, that's the best basketball play we can make, then there's an effect on other guys who play with him. And Zavier was watching very, very closely, of how Kon did it, and so he has done it similar in his own way, but similar in the fact that he has always been willing to share and make the right basketball play. And so then you got kids who start buying into that style of play, and it's been very rewarding for me as a coach to watch the guys share the ball and play good basketball. And again, we talk about that a lot, that we want to play good basketball, and then we define what that means to us as a program and to our kids, so that they know exactly what we're talking about. When we use those words, play good basketball, they know what we're talking about. And it's been fun to watch them grow in that area.
One thing that I noticed right away with your playoff run this last year, a lot of people notice, obviously, and talk about the offensive side of things, but the defensive side of things. Just looking at the playoffs alone, the amount of points that you guys didn't give up is pretty tremendous. Just starting with the playoffs itself, 24, 18, 29, 46, 61, and 37. Speak a little bit about your defensive prowess and the things that you hold dear to your heart when it comes to that side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started coaching, I was definitely more of a defensive guy because I didn't know really much about offense like the higher level guys, the guys who have experience. I was an infantile when it came to offense and trying to help guys understand good offense. And over the years, I've been able to learn from other people and have benefited from having good coaches to talk to and help me with that stuff. And so defense has always been something I've felt strongly about. And then I had the chance to, help see how Whiteside developed his defensive mind. And now 3-4 years ago, he took over completely. He is the defensive coordinator. He runs all defensive drills in practice. I just stand on the sideline and encourage and, hang out a little bit when he's doing his thing. So the defensive success that we've had the last couple of years are really based on him and his ability to teach defense. And, what we've done is we've evolved our defense over the years to fit players, right? I mean, if you go back and look at our 2013-14 team, we tried to press and we dogged you the whole game and we were up the line and pressuring the ball like crazy. And now we want to use our height and length and keep you out of the lane and make you shoot over the top of our really tall guys. And, so just the ability to adjust to what the players can do best and figuring out how that's going to look. That's what we've been able to do, and Seattle's done a great job of that the last couple of years, putting guys in position to be successful defensively as much as we tried to do it offensively.
Yeah, I think you talked about how you adjust to the group that you have, how you create advantages, and that's one thing that I'm really impressed with your groups and with what you do offensively is your ability to create those advantages, those scoring advantages, whether it's in the one-on-one, the post up with off ball movement. What helps you cultivate kind of that high IQ basketball that is played on the court?
Well, it helps to have smart kids, and it helps to have really high level, players. And then, of course, as they're doing it, it rubs off on the other kids. And now through the repetitions that we get and the ability to build in the summer now and throughout the season, that kids get to rep those things out, and we get to really coach them up on not just don't do this, but do this here or try this or have you thought about this? Or when they do this, maybe we should do this. And so now you feel like you're really coaching basketball instead of, coaching effort or yelling at kids for this or yelling at that. Now it's just, it's an enjoyable thing where you're trying to help them learn the game of basketball at a higher level.
Well, with that, you've been at this for 18 years. You have 372 wins. It's 3 straight trips to Madison, 3 straight gold balls. How do you keep it fresh and challenging? Obviously, you get a new group of kids in every year. Every year is different. Every week is different, really, in high school basketball. We're dealing with 15 to 18-year-olds. But how do you keep it fresh and challenging for yourself?
Well, I think the inner competitive spirit I think that most coaches have is the driving factor, right? There's always pressure from the outside to be successful, and when you have good players, that pressure goes up. But the inner drive I have for my own competitiveness is still always going to be the number one pressure that I have on me to perform, to do what's right for the kids. I don't. I say a prayer before every game that I don't screw it up for the kids, that I'm not the one who ruins the opportunity for them to have success. And so I take that very seriously, that I have to be the most prepared. I have to be the one who's at everything. I have to do everything I can so that I don't screw it up for these guys, because I know how much time they put in and I know how much they love it. And I know the expectations that they have. And so the motivational factor becomes really easy because of what they want to get out of it. And so it's not so much me anymore as maybe when I was younger and you're a little bit more egotistical, and you think, oh, I have to get this done and I have to do this. And I don't feel that way anymore. I'm doing it for them. And they drive what I do because they want to do these things. And it helps to have your son on the team. I'm not going to lie about that. I've really probably worked, really, really hard the last number of years with my kid being in the program to really get us going trying to get him to have success. So that's part of it too. The day after we won the state championship, I woke up Sunday morning and, you think you would wake up and you'd be like, oh, great, we're going to relax. And, it's done now and whatever. And so I wake up the next morning and I've got the anxiety of, okay, what's our lineup going to look like next year? How are we going to manage the expectations of the JV kids coming up, and what are the conversations we need to have, and how is that going to look, and who are the guys who are going to level up and, earn, rotation spots next year, and all the things. And so it just never ends. It just keeps going and going.
I think that's how you still have the fire inside of you yet, right? Where you wake up the next morning after a state championship and you realize, well, there's next year. Now we have to start thinking about that, because I'll be honest, that was one of the first things that I thought about too once my season was over.
Yeah, for people who have never coached, the amount of mental time, the stress and the mental, I'm trying to choose my words here right so I don't, come off as sound like a complete idiot, but the amount of time you spend thinking about basketball and the kids who play in your team and your program, it's almost like an addiction. You cannot escape it. It is nonstop. It is constant. It is always on your mind. You are always thinking about it. That's probably where the biggest drain of energy comes from. It's not the physical drain of going to practice every night or this or that. It's that mental drain of you just cannot escape it. It is when you're competitive like that and you're a coach, it can ruin your life, I guess, a little bit, but I'm trying to lean into it as best that I can.
Coach, over the years, we've seen 75 to sometimes 100 coaching changes every year, and it's been pretty constant over a number of time. What do you see, without getting into the reasons why necessarily, but what do you see from the coaches that stay, the ones that make it past year 2, 3, 5, whatever, and stick around? What do you see that makes them successful and able to stay in it longer term than what we see with a lot of the changes?
I think a lot of those guys, they don't make it about themselves. They make it about the kids. They enjoy practicing. I think guys who really enjoy going to practice really can last a longer time. Like I would, if we didn't ever play a game, I'd be fine. If we could just go to practice and learn basketball and get better at basketball, I'd be happy. That'd be great for me. Don't have to worry about wins and losses then. I think coaches who feel that way or think that way, I think have the ability to stick around the longest. Obviously, if you're gonna lose all the time, it is draining. I mean, I was a girls coach my first 3 years, and we lost a lot of games, and that was really, really hard. It was draining. We've been through some years where we have not had good teams, and it's very draining. So you gotta have the mental toughness or the support from your staff or your family at home to push you through those bad times to get to the good times. But then again, if you think about it, even in those bad times, like I think back to my first 3 years of coaching girls, what a great experience with those young ladies and teaching them basketball and helping them become better and more competitive. And the teams that we haven't had that have been successful, those kids are still great kids and still loved coaching them and whatever. So you got to focus on the right things and have that gratitude in your heart, I guess.
To just expound on that a little bit, with the coaching turnover that we see in the state on the boys and girls side, what advice would you give to coaches that are either young coaches that are getting into it, that are in their first couple years, that are just wondering, hey, can I do this? What advice do you give to those guys that are in the field?
That's a great question. I don't know that I've ever thought about it like that, because I don't have too many people coming up and asking me questions like that. But I think you got to get over your own competitiveness. When you're coaching a game, if it's about your competitiveness, then you're not coaching your team, and you're going to make mistakes. And you got to find a way to put yourself on the back burner. I mean, how many times are you in games and you feel like, well, this is a team we should beat by 20 because we beat them by 20 the first time, and now the second time around, and now I'm all up in my feelings because I think we should be doing better than we are instead of trying to help my guys figure things out. in a tough situation, I'm getting angry and upset and yelling. And so I think that's a big thing. Managing expectations has probably become the biggest part of coaching. It's not, it's communication, relationships, and managing expectations. That's what coaching is today. And if you can do those three things and do them well and keep getting better and better at them, then you can have some longevity in coaching.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Um, on top of that, you mentioned that you win that state tournament, and then the Sunday morning you're like, oh man, I got to get right back into it. How how do you balance that work life? And it's not even, I'd say, during the season, but Coach Smith and I have talked about this plenty of times. I don't know when the season ends and starts anymore, especially in basketball, because of the summer activities, the ability to be more hands on now with the contact days and AAU ball and going to everything like that. How do you disconnect, so to speak? How do you keep that work life balance a little bit easier so you don't get kind of lost in the sauce, so to speak?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have to write, goals for ourselves every year, as teacher, and what are you going to work on personally? What are you working on professionally, whatever. And one of my goals is always that I'm trying to get better at that balance. I mean, I don't have an answer for you. I think that, that's probably an area where I've, not been as good as I should be, and again, I think it doesn't help having a family that is all basketball junkies, and this is what we do. And so it's hard to escape. And, you go to Easter Sunday at my mom and dad's house, and, you're talking about this and that, and it's, 90% of it's basketball or whatever. And again, my wife is amazing. When we first started dating, she could have cared less about basketball. She did not like basketball, and that's probably the perfect fit for me. Because while she does enjoy coming to games and especially watching her son play and her daughter play basketball, she is a complete disconnect because we don't have to go home and talk about X's and O's and why didn't I do this and why did I do that and whatever. So she is probably the person that allows me to disconnect from basketball the most, and it's greatly appreciated.
Yeah, my wife is very similar. The conversations on the car ride home usually involve, well, why did they throw it there? Like, that's a great question, and I can't give you an answer.
Coach, I wanted to ask you about you're coaching AAU now, and I wasn't sure how long have you been doing that. What got you into that? And I guess maybe the answer is, was it being able to coach your son a little bit more? Is that kind of what led you to take on more basketball outside of the season?
Yeah. So when he was in third grade, I started coaching him for AAU, and then the first year I also tried to coach junior Vikings during the season, and that did not go well. That was a little too much. But that I've always felt like I needed to work on that relationship with him. I played for my dad. I know how hard it is. And I know how hard it was on my dad, and so I wanted to work on that. And I sometimes my personality in sports is a little bit over the top competitive, and I can get a little snarly, and so I needed to develop that relationship with my own kid so that if he was ever going to play for me in high school, it could be a successful thing, a good relationship, a positive a relationship. And my wife would often remind me after his third and fourth grade games, hey, you're still his dad. You aren't always going to be his coach, but when he's done playing, you're going to still be his dad. You don't want to ruin that relationship. And that's a good reminder for me. And so I wanted to work on that. I also wanted to control the narrative a little bit. Um, you know, what I had seen is that the youth experience of playing sports is almost totally based on the coaching, if it's going to be a positive or a negative. And so I wanted to control that also for my son, that I can give him a positive experience and his friends or the kids who played on our team. And then, of course, AU can get pretty crazy and it can get really expensive. And so I wanted to also control that narrative of, well, we're playing in these events. We don't need to be flying across the United States to play. We're going to play in local events. We're going to, get kids who want to buy into, playing team basketball and things of that nature. And so it's been a lot of fun for me to to coach. And of course, through grade school was a lot of Wisco kids, but then you get to high school and Wisco kids can't play anymore. So then it's, we got a bunch of Arrowhead kids and a Waukesha West kid and a Pewaukee kid and a Sussex Hamilton kid and a Lake Country Lutheran kid. And bringing these guys together to play has been fun for me to get kids outside of our high school.
You say that you can get snarly and get after it in basketball, but for those of us that watched that state championship game, the dichotomy between you on the sideline and Steve Collins on the sideline could not have been more different. You're one of the rare coaches, perhaps, that sits much of the game. Coach Collins is up and down and manic and all over the place. How do you get to a point where you can sit and trust your kids to just go out and play basketball without having to go up and down? And obviously there's different ways to coach and everybody has success in different ways, but how have you landed on kind of that sideline demeanor?
Is that could be the young me versus the old me, I guess. So my assistant coach, CL Whiteside, said to me a number of years ago, I like watching the game better than I like watching you from behind. So I think that was one of the big motivators for me to sit down so that my assistant coaches can actually coach and watch the game. Because if I'm standing in front of them the whole time, then they can't see anything. So now the only aggravating part of that is when the referee gets in our way and stands right in front of us. And then I feel like maybe I got to get up a little bit. But sitting down has helped me to relax, not yell at the referees nearly as much, and help think through the game instead of being reactive. Just thinking things through and taking my time more, and allowing my assistant coaches to do more too. It doesn't always have to come from me. I think sometimes, especially when I was young, you always think, oh, it's got to come from me. It's got to come. It doesn't have to come from me all the time. It can come from any one of our coaches, and the kids need to hear those different voices. And so I think sitting down has really helped. I also don't have really good hips. So in a couple of years, I'm going to have both my hips replaced. And so sitting down sometimes helps, because when you stand a lot, then you end up, if you go back and watch me on tape from when I was younger, I would always end up kneeling or kneeing. And that hurts too bad. I can't do that anymore. And so the sitting just seemed like the better option.
Coach, Riley's going to be a senior next year. It'll be your last year coaching him. This might be a question that'll be better answered after next year, but just kind of as a pre-question, do you think you'll be able to find time to enjoy a few of those moments and live in a few of those moments a little bit more with Riley next year, with regards to maybe his last home game, that senior night, stuff like that?
Yeah, I'm trying not to get to the point where I'm going to be emotional about certain things, and I think that's going to end up being hard for me. I think about things right now already, and it makes me sad. He didn't play this weekend, so I coached his AU team without my own kid, and it was hard. Like that, this is the first time I've coached basketball with him without him being on the team in 3 years, and it just felt different to me. It was not the same, and it was a little bit sad for me, and I missed sharing those moments with him. He's off doing a trip for school, and so he didn't play, and it was really different. So I know it's going to be hard for me at the end, and I'm absolutely going to try and take every moment in and capture every moment and enjoy it as we go.
Is there a coaching future with Riley? Is that something that you guys have talked at all about, getting it passed down one more generation?
I told him the same thing my dad told me many, many times. You do not want to be a high school coach. You do not want to be a coach. He's talked about it, but that's not his number one thing right now. He would like to play college basketball if the opportunity allows him, and I think he would like to go into, some type of economics or finance or business is what he's looking into. He's a math head. I don't know how that happened. I barely made it through high school with my math credits, and my wife says she's no math brain, and here he is, and he's this math head, and so he likes the numbers and he likes to figure out stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what he wants to do. I know teaching is still on the back burner for him, and if he would go into teaching, he would absolutely want to be a coach then.
Yeah, I think, fellas, any other questions before we kind of get to this last weird, not a weird segment, but last question that I've got?
Well, we won't put Coach Walz on the hot seat with Zavier on his visits the last couple of days and making a decision. We'll let you off the hook for that of giving us a sneak peek of what's coming.
Yeah, well, he's still going. I mean, he's got Wisconsin tomorrow, so we'll see.
Yeah, we're excited to follow that along, Coach. I went into ChatGPT and I just wanted to get them to ask one question, just one question. I put in who you were. I was like, generate one question for Coach Walz to give out. It gave out a good question. I was hoping to get a little bit creative with it, but this is the question. It's kind of a new segment that I decided to do, the ChatGPT question. Not sponsored, not affiliated, ChatGPT at all. But ChatGPT spit out, what do you want your players to remember most about being part of your program after they graduate?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Look at that. That's so deep. We do talk a lot about this, that, the wins and the losses are going to go away. Your relationships that you've built are the number one thing. We want to have them spend time together outside of basketball. That's why in the summertime we try and do a weekend, go to a tournament, stay overnight, have them spend time together. That's why we chose to go to Myrtle Beach this year. We're going to go travel next year and play again, because those moments that they get to be together are so special, and bonding time, and it's just so important. And then just to watch them grow in their relationships with each other is just really, really a great experience for me as a head coach. And I absolutely constantly share that with them and encourage them to understand that that's the biggest part of this whole thing.
Yeah, ChatGPT getting deep with regards to bringing that emotion out. Coach, I can't thank you enough. We really appreciate you taking the time here on this Sunday night to come on and talk. Hopefully we can get you back on sometime in the future, but enjoy the AAU season. Enjoy the last 30, 40, 50 games you get to coach with Riley. And again, thank you very much for taking the time out tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I always like to talk about basketball. Fun stuff.
Just coming out of that interview with Coach Walz, can't thank him enough for taking the time out. He said after we hopped off with him that we kind of gave him some softball questions, but we didn't necessarily want to put him in harm's way with regards to any recruiting or anything like that, but got a lot of really good, just a lot of good that came out of that interview, guys.
For sure.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Sorry, Travis, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say he is great at being open and honest, and you can see how his coaching style is and how his interview style is as well. Just very upfront, direct, honest, and got some great insight. I think the conversation around Kon's recruitment, maybe some things that people hadn't been aware of, or exactly how all that process plays out. Some of the things that he talked about with being a young coach and how you stay in it for so long and stay engaged and energized, I think were outstanding. So just a great interview all around. Great representation of representative for high school basketball in the state of Wisconsin. So just would love to continue to have more and more coaches like that provide their perspective.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the segment as well, and just listening to him speak about things. And he went from high level recruiting stuff all the way down to coaching his son and what it's like. And as someone who I think I categorize myself yet as a young coach and someone who's still trying to figure it out a little bit, but also I'm jumping into he's jumping out of part of the environment that I'm jumping into now when it comes to his son leaving where he's not going to be coaching him anymore, where I'm going to potentially start coaching my son, as my son's going to enter third grade next year. And when he started talking about coaching third and fourth grade basketball and the things that go with it, kind of really caught my attention, and I really felt myself just being a spectator and listening to him talk there to kind of gain some insight and knowledge of someone who's been through it for a long time already with his own son. So that was those of you listening that might be thinking of starting up to coach your son or your daughter. He gave some really good perspective on what that's like.
Some of the best advice that I received is someone who coached my kids starting in third grade, and my oldest is graduating this year. It's very, very hard to do, but if you can go home in the car after practice and your conversation or what you say to your kid is, I really enjoyed coaching you today. If that's what you say and that's the only thing you say, that should be the goal. I did not do well at that all the way through. I'll be completely honest. It's hard, but if you can get to a point where, it's just, hey, I enjoyed coaching you today. Good job. And then you move on to being dad and son instead of dad/coach and son/player. That's a great place to be able to get to.
Yeah. A lot of, like you said, Chris, I mean, literally the spectrum, right? Youth basketball, coaching your kid, Division I recruiting process.
He has me second guessing now whether or not I should be trying to coach my son's youth team next year during my season.
I will tell you, having
but
seen
hey, we're gonna give it a shot anyway. So
yeah,
it is.
I've seen a lot of coaches try to do it, and it's very difficult to devote the time that you need to do both. But as he said, one of the reasons he did it, right, was to control how that process went. Even though he has great coaches in his system, even though he has outstanding people in his program and in his youth program, as a parent, you want to make sure that your child is having the best experience they can, that is getting out of it what you want to have them get out of it, what you feel is important. Which is hopefully for coaches, right, especially at the youth level, development and fun, enjoyment, growing in the game, all those kinds of things, and not some of the other negative things that come out of youth coaching when you have the wrong people. That control aspect is big and hard to give up.
Yeah. You're going to say something.
Me?
Yeah.
I mean, I loved where he talked about with the youth stuff, where he, he's like, and when he was talking about developing his youth, and he was saying, he's like, I have my fingers on this and this and this already. And, I kind of looked at it the way, like, where when he started talking about coaching his son too, is that it was another way for him to obviously coach his son and be more involved in his son's life. But at the same time, he's also trying to promote and develop his program. And I mean, that's another way for us as head coaches of the high school to get even more involved with the youth. And I feel like too, even if we didn't have sons coming into the program at all, that just wanting to be involved with that more and more, as long as time is allotted, right, is only beneficial in the long run to your program, because I think it allows the kids to get to know you a little bit as a person too.
And that's why I asked him that follow-up question of, all coaches say they want to have a good youth program, and that's important to them, and they want to develop it. And that's why I asked him, what did he do to make that happen? Because there's a broad spectrum of ways that coaches approach youth basketball, and we can spend 5 episodes on that. Of, the thing that I've always felt, and Colton, our dad, has said this for a long time, as a head coach, you don't have to do everything, especially at that level, at the youth level. But you need to make sure that it is done right. Whatever is being done is done right. If that's setting the tone, if that's, as he said, setting terminology and expectations and picking the right coaches and all those kinds of things, hopefully you can get to a point, coaches can get to a point where they can make sure things are being done the right way without having to do everything.
Yeah. And at the end of the day,
the people.
Burn out.
Right. And at the end of the day, I mean, it's our livelihood as head coaches, right, to make sure that everything is in place to where our vision is trying to approach and reach. So I mean, it's a really tough thing to do. Obviously, myself being involved in my own youth program, he hit on a lot of things that I do think a lot of head coaches try to strive to do, but again, it's very challenging.
Yeah.
The other thing I would add in there, just maybe one more youth topic, is as a parent. I was not a varsity basketball coach, right? I was a parent coach coming up through youth basketball. Is making sure in trying to have a good balance, right, between the varsity coach and what they want out of youth basketball, which in a lot of times is developing, kids for their varsity program in 3 years, 5 years, 8 years, whatever it might be, while also trying to maintain, a proper perspective of its youth basketball, and you want to have it, in some ways be recreational and get kids involved and have a lot of opportunities and not just focus on the top 6 kids or 8 kids starting in 3rd grade. Like there's a balance that's very delicate between all those different ways that people view what youth sports should be and can be and one out of their program.
And notice that something he said that stuck out right away to me was when he talked about getting coaches in place and then making sure that they could get as many kids as possible be involved and figure out how many teams they needed to have to get as many kids involved. Notice he didn't say anything about cutting or anything like that. So I do. That's it. That's a big thing to me. Is you gotta involve as many kids as possible. And you know what? At the end of the day, if it does just come down to basketball, you never know which one of those kids is going to end up being something in 3rd grade.
And it's a lot easier to have a healthy program.
Yep.
Varsity program when you start with 18 kids in 3rd grade as opposed to starting with 8 kids.
And it's only going to strengthen your community the more things that more people are engaged in together.
Yep. That being said, we got kind of a fun little segment that we're going to use here in the off season. I have no idea how this is going to go. I don't know exactly how it's going to, this is kind of our first test subject with it. But what we're doing is we're going to draft a starting 5, and it's going to be a snake draft. And each week it's going to be a different topic. This week's topic is coaching phrases, sayings, words, and these, you can take this as it's kind of an open to interpretation. Is it your favorite? Is it one that you hear the most? Is it something that you like saying the most? And then it's something that either is said, in the game that coaches say to each other, that maybe it's, something that's said in practice. This is kind of open to interpretation, a little different way of doing it. Trav, you're about to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to add, I think one of the things that we're going to do with it is also, once we're done, put it out there on social and see what people think. Who had the best draft, right? Yeah. I think, Colton, you said that's something that you see on a lot of the Barstool stuff you watch. They do a lot of that. So we're looking for some audience participation of who had the best out of these as we go throughout the off season.
Yeah, you know what? We should
do a poll.
We're going to put a poll up.
We're going to put a poll up for every one of these.
I like it.
Now we need a competition.
Are we going to keep a record?
Now we need a competition.
So we're going to keep a record then too?
We're going to keep a record.
For sure. Okay. You guys don't have as many people that don't like you as I do, though.
I don't see how it affects me at all, Travis.
You also have 10 times the followers that I do, and however many times the followers that Chris does. Your reach is a little bigger.
20, Colton.
But okay, we're gonna keep a record. Now, either we determine something that the winner gets, or we determine maybe a punishment that the loser has. We don't have to make that decision right here, but I think that's what we're going to do. We can talk about this off air.
Wheel of Fortune.
We can talk about this off air. And it's not going to be something crazy. It's going to be a punishment, or like the winner, whatever happens, it's going to be talked about on the pod. So it's going to be...
Winner gets first pick next week.
Well, I figured, no, with this, we'll just do a rotating. like 1 through 3.
I mean, sometimes I might want the third pick.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We'll do a rotating, like
You know, 'cause
whoever's
then
first this week, it'll be next week is second, and we'll just rotate like that. I'm talking though, Trav, end of the year standings, end of the offseason standings, whether it's the 2 guys that didn't win, that didn't have the most wins during this offseason, they have some sort of punishment, or the winner has some sort of accomplishment. We'll figure that out here in the next coming weeks, but yeah, now we're all coaches here. We're all competitors. It's now a competition.
I'm trying to organize my list.
No buying votes.
Trying to organize my list here a little bit to make sure I'm ready. I don't know.
All right, let's bring up this wheel that's going to determine the first week's order. We won't need this wheel after this week, as we'll just rotate, but this will be this week's wheel.
So does the winner of the wheel go first, or does the wheel of the winner the winner of the wheel get to pick which pick they want?
It's just first, second, third, and then it's going to be on a rotation every week after this. So like if you went second this week, next week you'll go first, the third week you'll go third.
So this is determining the order moving forward then.
Correct.
Like the toss-up questions.
All right. Wheel of names for the first pick in the inaugural starting
Colton's
5.
gonna get it. I told you. I told you.
Let's go.
It goes to Chris. All right. We're gonna remove Chris. Fitty. Travis Colton. This is
I think
great.
you want the third pick now.
This is great podcasting for the guys that are the folks
Travis,
that are
is a
listening
good spot
on
for you to be in.
Spotify.
It's an F draft, right? Yeah, snake draft.
Correct.
Happy.
Snake draft it is. I'm gonna get rid of that. All right. Should I bring up the Canva so then we can keep that? Everybody's got a visual.
If it works.
If you can do it, yeah. Go for it.
Boom. Here is our working document on how it's going to go. Chris, with the first pick of the first draft of the first starting 5, coach, sayings, phrases, words. What are you going with?
Well, so this one comes from I got this from a coach I used to work with when I lived out in Colorado, and it was a big phrase within our system because we were full court pressure all the time, and it kind of stuck with me. So I'm gonna roll with this one right away. Is heat 'em up in reference to some ball pressure.
Up. Spelt that way?
Yep.
Heat 'em up.
You will hear me say that a lot during a game, especially if we're in some sort of pressure type defense.
Now I've got that song from state basketball stuck in my head. You gotta heat 'em
Nope,
up.
we don't.
Heat 'em up.
Stop that. I just got all those songs out of my head from state. We got to stop it.
Again, this thing could go any which sort of way, but the number one on my list that for coaches, sayings, phrases, or whatever is control the controllables. Or if you could say control what you can control, but I go with control the controllables. Any commentary there?
I mean, you just took one of mine.
Yeah.
Are we just doing like are you just gonna get into like nonstop coaching philosophy?
No, I got some that I yell from the bench. So
all right.
Trav, snake draft. You got 2 picks in a row. What is a first round pick for you?
All right. Let's go move it. Or move the ball. Move it is I think more common of what I hear.
I think move it is more common too. I like that one.
I got a couple.
Chris, you hear move it quite a bit over in Hartford.
I don't know if I'm going to draft what I would say to that. So I can't.
Oh, don't tip pick. You got to tip. Yeah, don't tip picks. Trav, first pick of round 2.
I'm going to go with let's go.
Let's go.
As a not a Casey from Big Brother, let's go, but as you're breaking the huddle, as you're trying to get them to do what you want them to do, whatever. I'm going to go let's go.
I like that one.
Forgot I have to delete one of mine because somebody stole it.
I'm going to go with one.
E plus R equals O.
Not all of these are exactly are going to be the same, but these two are probably ones that I say and use and hear more than anything, and it's next play mentality.
You're so boring.
You have 4 words in yours. Move it. Let's go.
I'm saving the good ones for later because you're not going to get them anyway.
Chris, here.
All right.
Swinging it. What's the first pick?
Oh, man. Let's see here. I will say I will say something that I talk about a lot and in regards to, and this goes back to like Coach Walz, right, saying like what playing good basketball, what that means and everything. Our guys know when it comes to games and everything that the first 4 minutes, whether it's the first 4 minutes of the game or the first 4 minutes of a half, are extremely important. And we talk about first 4 minutes a lot. Then I gotta ask you guys if this is on a ruling, if this is okay, because technically
our first ruling.
I gotta ask about this. So
unprecedented.
Not necessarily a phrase or a word or even a saying, because it's not. It's none of those. But
is it a symbol?
Just the stare, or like pure just silence and stare at one of your players and they know exactly what you're saying through your eyes.
I wouldn't.
I'll allow it.
You'll allow it?
I don't know if I'd allow it because you're saying something different with every stare. Probably you're not saying the same
thing. I'll allow it because
stare.
I have on my list nothing.
Yeah, because I think it says a lot sometimes.
We're getting in the weeds here.
I don't know. One. I mean, I don't think we're getting in the weeds.
The only reason I would say that I would call shenanigans is due to the fact
because you're afraid that my list is going to beat your list. Is that why?
Here, let me ask you this though, Coach Smith. If we're going to allow nothing,
okay,
has there been a time when you have called a timeout and said nothing to your team?
Yeah.
Yes, there have been times where I will call a timeout and I will stand behind everybody, and then my assistants realize that I'm not going to say anything, and they go in and start talking.
No, that doesn't count. I'm saying no coaches say anything.
So,
and that's the message.
Well, I mean, there have also, I guess it's still a message. Well, here, okay, fine. How about this one? You guys figure it out.
That's not, you can't double dip. You already went nothing.
Well, I'm getting told I can't use it.
No, I already approved it.
But what am I putting in quotation marks? I'm not putting
quotation marks, parentheses, nothing.
But it's the stare.
Just put the stare.
I feel. Okay.
Colton hates that one.
You know, Colton, you could have like highlighted all of those cells and changed the font size on all of them at one time. But...
We're living in the moment. My next one is one that I've said quite a few times in game is get on the floor. You know, there's too many 50-50 balls. Get on the floor.
Colton, can we make a mid-season change? I feel like there's way more than 5 that I want to do.
No, it's a starting 5, you Sally. What we'll do is we'll talk maybe honorable mentions.
That's what it's about.
We'll talk honorable mentions afterwards.
You're in charge of making those decisions right now, Travis.
All right.
This is your team.
I just had what I was going to do. What was it? Get a good one. I'm going to go with. Get a good one. What did the survey say?
I like that one.
That's
That's
a
an
good
old
one.
school one.
Survey
Get a good
says
one's a good
46.
one.
Yeah, I mean, get a good one. There's different variations of that too that we can bring up in honorable mentions.
All right. I only got 2 left, so I'm going to make this a good one. All right. I'm going to go why.
That one's pretty good.
And I mean, it's
That
like,
one-
That one was on my.
gets
That
asked
one was
to-
on my. That was on my list.
That one gets asked internally almost as much as it gets asked
Yeah.
out loud.
Yeah, no, that's as much internal like monologue as it is anything else. And it's it's like some naughty words. Like it can be used in so many different ways in inflections and situations.
I'm gonna go with another one-worder, and I'm just gonna go with sit. If my kids are standing there on defense, they're not in a defensive position, I'm yelling sit. I don't know how common that is, but that's one that I use quite a bit.
Yeah, I'll yell out "sit down" all the time.
Yeah.
All right,
Chris,
so I
your
gotta pick my last two. I will go with take care of it. And it usually ends with a clap or a clap first, and then it's take care of it.
I thought maybe you were going to go off the board again and go with clap as one of your.
Or as one of a coaching buddy, friend, Brandon Ewing, who was the head coach at center the first couple years that I was there, he used to stomp. He'd have just a 1-foot stomp.
I can't do that. I can't do any stomping because there are we have calls that involve my feet sometimes. So it's true.
I'd say
look at
I'd
this,
say
Travis.
this would be.
I'm mentioning things right now.
I was
I
going to
know.
say, I'd say
Like
this would be great to bring up on the podcast, but I'm afraid you won't go into any more depth on that one.
You gotta be, you gotta use the gamut right there. Let's see. The last one I'll say is go. We like to play fast paced a lot, and that's something that gets ingrained in our kids in practice, in games, whatever we're doing. It's go. Got to be able to play fast.
Yep, I had that on my list, and I'll allow it as an alternative to "Let's Go" that I drafted earlier. They're not.
Nope,
the
it
same.
means completely different. Let's go is like cheering, like let's go.
I know that's
Or
what I'm saying.
encouragement. Yeah, like I'm literally go.
Trying to figure out which one I say more. They mean the same thing. Which one is said more? And I think I'm just going to go with talk.
On my list
Pretty
too.
simple. Talk.
Yeah.
Communicate out there. Trav, the first Mr. Irrelevant. What do we got? You got a list of 45 you said over there, so what
I have so many good ones that I want to use. Do I go like actual like coach speak, or do I pander to the audience and go with some kind of irreverent, sane?
I don't think you're a pander to the audience guy.
He's not?
He just said
Follow me on Twitter.
I guess sarcasm wasn't thrown loud enough into the microphone. Sorry.
Oh boy. All right. All right. I'll save my irreverent ones for the honorable mention bench player list, and I will go with hands.
Yeah, I had hands up. I was between that and talking.
Now, is that a hands where you're yelling that to the official, or you're yelling that to?
Ooh, good question.
I'm double
Yelling that
dipping
to
and taking
players.
both.
Both?
I'm double dipping and taking both.
I like
Fair
it.
enough.
Because that would fall under the lines with maybe a get him off type thing.
I have get him off us. That was one that was tip of my tongue. I almost went with it.
Get him off's a good one.
I do miss yelling over.
Colton, I hear you. I can't believe you didn't say it. I hear you yelling this all the time
What's
when
that?
I watch your games. Get in a gap.
Oh yeah, I do say that a lot. That's a complete oversight. Yeah, I say that a lot.
I do like yelling other teams' sets before they actually call it out on the floor. It's a
You
fun
only get
one.
one
It's a fun one
parentheses
for me.
pick per draft.
All right,
That
Trav.
is a fun one.
You said you have a bench the size of Arrowhead's varsity football roster. So what are some of those bench phrases / sayings that didn't make the graphic?
Yeah. One of my favorite ones that don't really hear during the season, but AU, it's on there. Do him.
Yikes!
You put that one in the chat. I have never heard that either.
Really?
I know. I replied to it. I was like, I have literally never heard that before.
You gotta follow AAU bingo. Although I don't think they do that anymore.
Yeah, I don't think those exist anymore. Right? It's a damn shame. I like following those.
I know, and I stole that. I completely stole that idea and did WIS FB bingo the last however many years. That's exactly where I stole that from. So, and one. I can't believe nobody said and one.
So that was on my top
I don't
7.
yell that very much. As a coach.
I will yell and one like in big moments in a game if it happens.
Yeah. That's more
like
of a kid
it's
thing.
got to actually get called and the ball's got to go in the hoop, and then like that's more of a cheering with my like bench players.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like real coach one, right? But stop the ball was on there as a fairly high consideration. And then call it both ways. Nobody got there. And then I had what are we doing? That's another inner monologue similar to why, right?
Yep, the good one.
What are we even doing? And then do you even watch film?
I've asked officials, do you even know the rules before? Should have put that one on there.
That should be an instant T.
Yeah, well. Know how to
I will make a comment.
Know where the ball needs to be inbounded so I don't have to say that.
When I know 100% that I am right about something, I will say like I'll send you the clip. Just give me your email address.
So I don't know if I've told this story on this podcast. When I was coaching at UW Richland, head men's basketball coach many years ago, there was officials that did our games and did high school games, and there's a few rules that are a little different. One of the rules at the time was the closely guarded rule. How there was still a closely guarded rule in college back then, and there was a difference in the distance or like how that was determined. And I was telling the ref that it should have been closely guarded, or they should have been counting, and he was trying to argue with me that it wasn't, and he was giving me the high school rule. And so I got out the rule book from my bag, and there was an inbound right in front of our bench, and I started to try to show it to him, knowing full well all it was going to do was piss him off. Absolutely should have got a technical for that, and I did not. So
we did that one time at halftime of a game because the ref gave one of our players a personal tech for touching the rim pregame, and I think it's a bench tech. So we got that out so he didn't have that foul on his ledger. Trav, finish up these honorable mentions.
Yeah, no, I had a few more on there. I always love the Vince Lombardi, what the hell's going on out there? That's an inner monologue. I don't say what the hell's going on out there to third graders, but that was on there. Colton, before we take the graphic down, let's run through.
Maybe Coach Smith had some honorable mentions, or I did too. Why don't you quit jumping the gun? He's playing us off.
Players. No, that's fine. Let's go.
Chris, any others that didn't make the cut?
Run the floor.
Yeah.
Good practice one. Get on the line.
Oh, that is. Get to the baseline.
How did nobody get to the baseline? On the baseline.
Let's see. Backside or help side. One stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I had a few that Travis had as well, but that's pretty much the end of it there for me.
Yeah, a couple other ones that I had was back on D, shoot to get hot, shoot to stay hot, finish strong, flip the court, finish in general, like finish at the
Oh,
rim,
finish. Yeah.
find a body. Yeah.
Did we
those were
mention
other
we'll take a
ones.
look at it on film?
No.
We'll take a look at it on film.
Chris, did you go to the tri-state basketball camp back in the day, or was that ended by the time you got through?
I don't know.
That
I
was
don't,
Jerry
I don't think I did.
Jerry Pettigrew and Al Sheevy from Slinger ran that camp in Beloit for many years. It was a team camp at Beloit College, and we went to it a number of times. And every year they had shirts that you could buy with different slogans on them, right? And I always remember a few of the ones that were on there, and they were probably on East Bay shirts too, if you ordered from East Bay back in the day. But
Oh yeah.
take a blow on the defense never rests. I mean, that was like shirt slogan, right? Not coach slogan. But yeah, that was one of them.
Man, East Bay. I remember it was like Christmas morning all the time, getting the East Bay magazine in the mail and sitting there looking through it.
Was the East Bay outlet, was that in Wausau? Waukesha?
Yeah.
Wausau.
It was
That's
Wausau.
where East Bay was headquartered, was Wausau.
Yeah. Let's just go through the list here for those that aren't watching on YouTube. For the snake draft, the first inaugural one, the starting five, coach sayings and phrases. Chris's was heat 'em up, first 4 minutes, quotes, parentheses, the stare, and take care of it and go. Mine, Colton's, was control the controllables, next play mentality, get on the floor, sit and talk. And then Trav's starting five was move it, let's go, get a good one, why, and hands. This was fun. I think we're going to enjoy doing this. I think we started out with a little bit of a quirky topic, which made it fun. But we're going to have, state-specific ones. We'll have girls and boys basketball specific ones. So this is something that we can look forward to doing every week from here on out, at least until the regular season or preseason kind of kicks in for hoops.
How many points do I get for winning this one?
Should we just go 3, 2, 1?
All right, put me down for 3.
3, 2, 1. We'll post this out on Twitter, out on the baseline. Let's make sure we share it. I think let's plan to post it on Tuesday or Monday afternoon. We'll close it on Wednesday afternoon or something like that.
That just reminded me of another one that my JV coach says all the time. Anytime a guy's going up in traffic for a layup or something like that and finishing in traffic, he always yells out, "Give me 3," like and 1. Except it's "Give me 3."
That's a new take on and 1.
I like that.
We're not going to tease too much. Actually, we're not going to spoil what we have coming up, but we had a really good interview tonight, and for this episode, we're dipping into the college ranks for our first interview, hopefully this next week. I think we'll announce it a little pregame or a little before pre-release to kind of let everybody know, but we're going to get our first college coach on this upcoming week. Fellas, anything else to say before we get out of here?
No, great show.
Yeah, I agree. Trav.
Do him. On the baseline.